Hey ladies and gentlemen, Stephen here from Redolessence and welcome back to another video. Thank you all so much for tuning in. And in today's episode, we're going to be taking a closer look at the newest release by the company Initio Parfum Privé, and this one is called Atomic Rose, so make sure to stay tuned. Before I begin the video, I do want to disclose that this product was sent to me for review by the company, and so for that reason, I will attempt to review this fragrance using mostly objective terms. The second thing that I want to do is say that there will be a giveaway attached to this video, so make sure to stay tuned until the very end of the video to know who won the prize. And the third thing that I want to say is that there are going to be a couple of events this month in November. The first event is going to be in New York City on November 14th at Bergdorf Goodman. I'm going to leave all of the information down below. It will be later on in the evening. The second event is going to be in East Garden City, New York at the Neiman Marcus at Roosevelt Field Mall. I'm going to leave that information down below as well. So two events, one on November 14th, one on November 16th. I will be doing a live demonstration at both of those events, so I would love it if you could attend at least one of those events so that I can meet you in person. And these events, of course, are always a lot of fun. It's always great when you have like-minded individuals congregating under the same roof. So let's go ahead and get this started. So this fragrance, 2019 release, it's called Atomic Rose, and that is quite fitting of a name because this does contain a lot of rose. As a matter of fact, it has two varieties of rose. You have Bulgarian rose, you also have Turkish rose. Now this is part of the Cardinal Blends collection, and basically what that means is Initio has a few different collections. And so they might have this collection, which is in the purple bottle. And of course, they have Oud for Greatness, which is kind of in its own collection. And they have Rehab, which is in its own collection. And so this collection, what makes this special is the fact that it contains hedione molecule. So hedione, if you haven't seen some of my previous videos, it is an ingredient that was, I think, discovered in 1962 or synthesized in 1962. It was used a lot by Rudnitska, especially in fragrances like Eau Sauvage. And it was a captive molecule up until a few years ago, and now anybody can use it, and Initio actually uses it in their Cardinal Blend fragrances in up to 50% concentration. And the reason for that is because it actually triggers the pleasure centers of your brain. So the amygdala, the hippocampus, the limbic system, and it actually creates a sort of euphoric response. So there was actually a study done out of Ruhr's University in Germany whereby they actually tested a hedione molecule side by side with phenyl ethyl alcohol, which has a light floral odor. And it turns out that whenever the mammalian participants smelled hedione molecule, it triggered the pleasure centers of the brain and it had a sex differentiated response. And so there was a hormonal change. So really interesting study. I'm going to link it down below as well. I'm really excited to tell you what I think of the smell. Let's start things off with the presentation. So the presentation for this fragrance is very nice. It comes in the purple box because this is part of the Cardinal Blends collection, and it actually has a sleeve which comes off. Let me see if I can find a way to remove it. Here we go. And then on the inside you see a simpler design, but it does have the Initio insignia here on the front, and it opens up to reveal a little card on the inside with some information about the company of the fragrance and also a little velvet podium in which the bottle rests. Now the bottle for this fragrance looks very similar to other Initio Parfum Privé fragrances. It also has the Initio name engraved into the cap. And then you have some information on the bottom if you're looking to authenticate your purchase. The cap for this fragrance does click into place very securely. You can pick it up from the cap. And the distribution on the atomizer is nice and wide. Let's continue with the smell. So as soon as this fragrance opens up, you are going to get a huge burst of rose. Obviously, rose is the namesake of this fragrance. And in this particular fragrance, you have a couple different varieties as indicated earlier on in the review. So you do have the Turkish rose and the Bulgarian rose. Now, in my experience, rose can convey two distinct and different odor profiles. One of them can be a little bit more on the lush and jammy side. The other one can be rather light and floral and airy and wispy. And I actually find this one to be maybe like 50% of the former, 50% of the latter. So it's right down the middle of the road. I don't find anything about this to be overly wispy or overly floral, despite the fact that it is compounded with this note of jasmine, which actually comes across smelling a bit more on the clean side, as opposed to like the dark, dirty, raunchy, animalic side. But then you also have the sensuality of vanilla lingering in the base, which kind of amplifies those lighter, more volatile ingredients in the top and the mid. Now, as soon as it opens up, I do perceive a little bit of citrus, perhaps bergamot, because there isn't a distinct citrus note in this fragrance. And then as it dries down, maybe it gets a little bit woodsy, but not overly so. The vanilla still dominates. So just to put things plainly, this fragrance kind of reminds me of a more masculine version of Parfum de Marly's Delina. Now, Delina, for me, I've always associated that fragrance with the lychee fruit note. And I think it's the presence of the lychee fruit that makes it veer in feminine territory. I personally love Delina. This is not a review of Delina, but I really do enjoy it, especially the fact that it conveys this femininity and the sensuality. In this fragrance, I think sensuality is conveyed, but not the femininity. And I think that's because the vanilla isn't overly strong. I think the rose is really atomic in the sense that it takes center stage, and there's obviously a couple varieties of it, but there's also this absence of a fruity component, which makes you not want to classify it as a fruity floral fragrance. Yes, there is like a pink pepper vibe going on in here, but pink pepper or pink berries, they actually don't smell fruity. They actually smell more like a floral ingredient. They have a rosy component to it as well. So I find this fragrance to be like an overdose of rose or rosy notes. Now, the one thing that I actually appreciate about this fragrance, and I do know from what I've been told from several Initio representatives, is it contains a lot of natural ingredients, primarily the jasmine, the rose, and whatnot. But I like that it doesn't have a rose oxide note, because I feel like ingredients such as those can actually make the fragrance come across smelling rather sharp and not as pleasant. Now, if I am allowed to inject a little bit of my own personal opinion into this review, and as a reviewer I think I am allowed to, I love the way that this one smells. I think that there's just this overabundance of rose that smells so amazing. And it's one of these things where I've always been wanting to wear Parfum de Marly's Delina. And don't get me wrong, I do wear it quite often. And I even love the the Delina Exclusive version. However, several times when I've worn it, I did feel a little self-conscious, almost as though someone were to ask me, are you wearing a woman's fragrance? How would I respond to that? And so obviously I don't really care and I don't mind. I still wear whatever, pleases me. But in the case of this fragrance, it really just takes away that apprehension, and it takes away that fear or that concern. It mitigates that concern. And so I really enjoy this one in how lush and how natural and organic smelling the roses, and I think that you will notice that as well. If you've had experience with a lot of designer rose scents, I mean, Cartier's Declaration d'un Soir is an amazing fragrance, and I think in terms of how the rose is conveyed or communicated to the wearer, it does come across smelling rather natural. But if that's a 5 out of 10, this is a 9 or a 10 out of 10. The rose is very organic smelling, very natural smelling, and this really fits the bill for somebody who is a fan of Parfum de Marly's Delina, but they want something with a bit more of a masculine edge, a fragrance where the vanilla dominates, but it's not as sweet as it is in Delina, and it has been totally stripped of that fruity component, which inevitably makes it veer into feminine territory. Let's go ahead and finish things off with my overall assessment. So first up, in terms of the uniqueness and the overall smell, I do find this one where the uniqueness is compromised a little bit just because it does smell inevitably like Parfum de Marly's Delina. However, it is different enough to warrant a purchase. And so if you have a lady or somebody in your life who wears Parfum de Marly's Delina, you want to smell similar to them but not exactly the same, something a little bit more rough around the edges, I think Atomic Rose is definitely the way to go. And I think it is the perfect couple. And so basically, if you have a men's version and a women's version of something, I think that Atomic Rose and Parfum de Marly's Delina respectively fit that bill, and it's such a cute couple. In terms of the overall smell, it's incredibly pleasant to my nose at least, but of course scent is subjective, so definitely go out there, try it for yourself, and see if you like it. In terms of the longevity on this one, I got about 8 to 9 hours on my skin, and the projection was really good for the first 2.5 hours. It didn't sit closer to the skin until about that 6.5 to 7 hour mark, and so the performance on this one is very good. In terms of the versatility on this one, I do feel as though it's compromised once more. I would wear this one in the colder weather. I wouldn't necessarily wear this one in the middle of summer, just because I do think that it could become a little bit cloying, especially considering its strength. And I also find this one to be unisex, however, leaning a little bit more on the masculine side, but it kind of has this Middle Eastern Oriental flair about it, because a lot of people from the Middle East wear rose fragrances quite quite comfortably, and it's not necessarily a Western sentiment just yet, but it might become so in time. And I also think that this is really good for dressed up occasions for a couple different reasons. One, the smell is very intriguing. Two, the price, and I think the overall aura that you want to convey is one that would be better suited to somebody wearing a dress or a suit and tie. And last up, in terms of the presentation, I really do enjoy the presentation for this fragrance. And my final verdict on this one is this is a wonderful fragrance to check out if you love rose-based fragrances and you don't have a preference between Turkish rose, Bulgarian rose. You just want something that smells quite rosy, something that smells familiar to maybe Parfum de Marly's Delina, but something that leans a little bit more in the masculine side. I personally find this to be a wonderful fragrance. I am loving this fragrance so far, and I've actually worn it to work for a week straight in the first week of September. Now, truth be told, I've actually been going with a travel atomizer that was provided to me by the company. So this was one of the pre-formulation samples that they received from the laboratory. And I was wearing this one back in August, right when it was starting to get a little bit chilly, and it was working so well on my skin. And that vanilla lingers, but it's not overwhelming. I really urge you to get your nose on this fragrance. I'm pretty confident that you will like it. So there you have it, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you so much for tuning in. That was my review of Atomic Rose by Initio Parfum Privé. If you own or have tried this fragrance, please let me know what you think. Leave a comment down below. Also, if you are new to this channel and you took something of value from this video, I would love it if you could support this channel by subscribing to it, and also make sure to click on that bell so you can enable notifications so all of my content gets delivered straight to you. And also, in order to enter the giveaway for this fragrance, I just want you to leave a comment down below and let me know what is your favorite Initio Parfum Privé fragrance. Also, if you haven't smelled any Initio Parfum Privé fragrances, just follow the link down below. It's not an affiliate link. And then I just basically want you to tell me which one sounds the most appealing to you. That's all you need to do. Make sure you're subscribed. I would really appreciate your support, and leave a comment down below. And I will pick the winner in 1 week's time. I will actually pin the winning comment to the top of the comment thread. So make sure to come back to this video in exactly 1 week to see if you've won. Thanks again for watching, everyone. I love you all. And hopefully I will see you on either November 14th or 16th or both. If not, I'll see you in the next episode. Bye.